One topic that I want to get into with you is seed oils. And this one has been I've just gotten increasingly interested in seed oils in general over the last few months. And part of it is because I sort of was uninterested in seed oils to some degree, where it was just kind of this thing. And then it started becoming more popular for all the wrong reasons. Like it became a target of, this is how I'm going to establish some credibility perhaps, or get momentum online, because if I say something like unnatural or this used to be engine lubricant, whatever it is, there's so many seed oils, it just goes on and on and on. And it's just so easy to kind of position it as really, really bad. Before that, though, I follow a relatively low carbohydrate diet. So like seed oils, in my opinion, were just something where this is a tool that could potentially be useful because it's literally 100% fat. So if I'm looking to increase my fat intake and minimize my carbohydrate intake to some degree, like that's a tool I may be interested in, especially if like you mentioned before, if I'm having a salad and I did a 20-mile run that morning, I might want a bunch of that salad dressing.
Need some calories.
Right.
Yeah.
So but then obviously you start hearing about seed oils being bad, and then so what do I replace it with, or do I need to replace it? Maybe they're better than the alternative that I'm going to replace it with. And you sort of end up in this situation where it's really hard to know what you're doing is good or bad, even when you're looking at it through just like a macronutrient side of things, like I had been.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you went on social media and you watch some of these influencers and TikTokers and things like that, like everything is apparently toxic. Every single thing that you're eating, right? And so, the seed oil demonization, I think, really kind of gained traction with this carnivore diet phenomenon as well. They kind of like evolved and emerged simultaneously. And so, you've got Liver King saying, well, animal fat is the only fat you should be eating. And, Carnivore MD, who his real name is Paul Saladino. I hope it's okay to call him out, but he's a psychiatrist. So he has he has an MD and he uses that as an appeal to authority, but he's trained in psychiatry. It's not remotely anything biologically related that he could be speaking on this. But anyways, he's a huge proponent of only eating animal products. And of course, they demonize seed oils. So there's kind of like several buckets, right? The two overarching themes are, seed oils are toxic and they're killing you, and because they're refined, they're also simultaneously killing you. So, if you look online, you're going to see social media influencers, your holistic health people, and your integrative this and your wellness gurus, and they're going to say seed oils are causing inflammation, they're causing headaches, they're causing brain fog, they're causing type 2 diabetes, they're causing weight gain, they're causing heart problems, they're causing cancer, they're causing leaky gut, and they're causing all these medical issues. And, there's even hashtags, right? The Hateful Eight, which relates to the 8 most common seed oils. You've got seed oil free, and so those Hateful Eight are referring to canola oil, corn oil, sunflower, safflower, soy, grapeseed, rice bran, and cottonseed oil. And these are all toxic. They're all killing everybody, apparently. So maybe very quickly, so seed oils are a catch-all name for vegetable oils that are derived from seeds. So basically, instead of olive oil, which is technically a vegetable oil that's made from fruit, because the olive is the fruit of the olive plant, not the pit of the olive, whereas something like a sunflower oil is actually taking the seed of the oil, crushing it, and extracting the oil. So, all of those seed oils apparently are all terrible for people. The TLDR of all this is that there's no evidence to support those claims. Of course, we've gone through the era of the saturated versus the unsaturated fats. So all vegetable fats are liquid at room temperature. So those are all your oils. Your animal fats like butter and lard are solid at room temperature, and it relates to the different types of fatty acid chains that are present in those. So I think that the biggest claim that relates to the seed oils is this this nebulous term of inflammation, which as an immunologist is quite frustrating because inflammation is very tightly regulated and it's essential and it's balanced by inflammation by our body. And typically we can't really like flex it or loosen it or, anyway. So oils, all oils have different ratios of fats, right? And so we talk a lot about a certain type of polyunsaturated fats, omega-6 fatty acids. These are essential. They're required for optimal human health, but humans can't make them. So we typically have to consume them. Otherwise, we don't have omega-6s. Now, omega-6s are very important for brain function, for metabolism, for growth and development. And these are, they also help with skin and hair growth, bone density, and they also participate in the reproductive system. So, they're something that we need. So seed oils broadly have a higher ratio of omega-6s to other fatty acids like omega-3s. And there's one omega-6 that is found in seed oils that has gotten a lot of negative attention, and that's linoleic acid. So people say essentially when you consume linoleic acid in the context of seed oils, essentially it undergoes a metabolic process and it's converted to another fatty acid called arachidonic acid. And according to these people who vilify seed oils, they say that this conversion of linoleic acid to arachidonic acid causes heart disease and causes chronic inflammation. They use some animal testing and or animal studies to kind of prove their point. And I think it's really important for people to understand that animals, non-human animals, are not the same as humans, and you cannot extrapolate in vivo data to a person. That's why clinical studies are always really, really important. But the biggest part is that only a tiny, tiny proportion of linoleic acid is actually converted to arachidonic acid. It's like 0.2%. So, that whole pathway, like it happens, but it's not happening to the degree that these people are suggesting. Basically within that pathway, you have linoleic acid, which is then it's initially converted before it goes to arachidonic acid to a secondary metabolite called gamma linoleic acid, or GLA. And in contrast to people that suggest that it causes all this chronic inflammation, there's actually clinical evidence that GLA reduces inflammation. So inflammation, again, as I mentioned, is this kind of very complex process, and it's always happening in our body. And in reality, the most inflammatory thing you can do is eat and exercise. Because every time you're eating, you have to take larger molecules, those macromolecules, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and you have to break them down through a catabolic process so that you can actually extract the energy in the context of ATP, but on food labels, we use calories. And every time you do that, you're breaking these bonds apart, and this generates these markers of inflammation. Sometimes people say reactive oxygen species or causes oxidative stress. This is literally always happening, and it's essential. If we weren't able to do this, we would not be alive. And so literally everything you eat causes inflammation because you're creating these byproducts. The good news is that our body's really good at regulating all of this. So, we don't have to worry too much about that when we eat something because our body is going to maintain this balance or this homeostasis. And inflammation happens for a reason, right? It's our body's immune response to some sort of stimulus. So that could be an infection. It could be a pathogen, a microorganism that our body's trying to sound the alarm about and recruit cells of the immune system to help kill it. It could be a physical wound. So that could be an actual cut on your skin that your body has to stimulate wound healing to regenerate skin cells. But it could be micro tears in your muscles after a hard workout, and you have to get good rest so your immune system can initiate that wound healing process as well. But you also do it during digestion. And this is, again, tightly regulated, and you don't want too much or too little of either side, anti-inflammatory or pro-inflammatory. So anyway, this linoleic acid topic is really kind of where this all started. So linoleic acid goes to this gamma linoleic acid, which, again, there's evidence that it reduces inflammation, but then subsequently 0.2% of that is converted to this arachidonic acid. So we need linoleic acid for survival. It's considered an essential fatty acid. We can't make it, and we need it for our cells. Like, it literally makes up a component of our cell membranes. And so if we weren't consuming it, we would have some issues with our physiology. So when you actually look at the scientific evidence about seed oils, so seed oils are a major source of this linoleic acid. You can also get it from eating actual nuts and seeds. It's also found in certain meats and in eggs. And there's a lot of clinical evidence that actually demonstrate it has an anti-inflammatory or protective effect. So if you look at, several meta-analyses over the last several years, they found that both linoleic acid and arachidonic acid, which was the byproduct, don't increase risk for any sort of cardiovascular disease. And when they looked at blood biomarkers, people with higher levels of linoleic acid in their blood compared to lower levels were 7% less likely to develop cardiovascular disease. So, when you look at the actual clinical evidence, there's actually no credible data that seed oils or the fatty acids that seed oils are composed of are actually implicated in any sort of inflammatory or chronic disease processes. And again, there's many other studies. I won't kind of rehash them all, but even the American Heart Association concluded that linoleic and arachidonic acids are actually associated with a lower risk of cardiovascular disease, and that linoleic acid is actually associated with better physical condition in older adults, particularly those over 70 years old. So, kind of the big overview is that there's a lot of really unfounded demonization of seed oils, when in reality we know that this kind of broad Mediterranean diet, which is unsaturated oils like your seed oils, lean proteins, high in fiber and produce, is really kind of the best catch-all diet for the vast majority of individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, like, when I started actually exploring like the other side of the topic, eventually, like, I found like a lot of the stuff you mentioned, which is just a lot of the things that are used to incriminate seed oils are just mechanistic related stuff. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Human Performance Outliers podcast with Zach Bitter.